That's bad.
Today we're going to find out if all of the work we did to the truck the past month or so was worth it, or if we completely wasted our time not just putting another big block back in. I think we made a lot of good upgrades to the truck that needed to get done that will hopefully result in better performance for the truck. But was all of this time and effort doing this LS turbo swap worth it, or should we have kept it nitrous big block? Now, I think that this thing's going to make plenty of power, but today we're going to see the question on how much the weight difference is. Now, I do have some of the old numbers written down. I looked up pictures of when I had the truck on the scale before. Now, it is worth noting that those pictures are from before we put this cage in. It's a mild steel cage, but it does add a pretty good amount of weight. So yeah, this is a mess. But one of the things that was constantly in the back of our minds with this swap was trying to keep the weight bias as far rear as we can, because like these trucks are already heavy enough to begin with. This thing, after we added the cage, was probably about 4,000 pounds. I'll go over the numbers in a minute. It was just a lot of trying to think of ways we could lighten the front and move the weight to the back. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get this thing down to like 3,300 pounds. It's a big, heavy truck with a mild steel cage and stock chassis. We didn't feel like cutting up the doors to make them just the skins, or cutting up the fenders to make them just the skins. There's a lot of stuff that we could have done, but we still wanted it to be a truck at the end of the day and not some like cut up tin can. So there's only so much that we could do, willing to do, I guess. So yeah, one of our biggest priorities wasn't necessarily getting it as light as possible. We were just trying to shift the weight from the front to the back. That's why we went with an aluminum motor, the plastic intake instead of like the cast aluminum Holley style, because that's actually super heavy. Stainless steel instead of the truck manifolds. These are like 5 pounds and the truck manifolds are like 20. Just a bunch of little stuff like that. We were able to put a smaller radiator in it. When I looked up the difference in weight, and I wanted to get something to actually hang the motors off the cherry picker to weigh them, I wanted to get an actual scale, but never got around to it. And the big block is now long gone. But when I looked them up, the general consensus, what I was seeing on the numbers for a fully dressed LS, intake to oil pan, no exhaust system, the general difference that I was seeing was about 300 pounds going from an iron-headed big block to an all-aluminum LS, about 300 pounds. Obviously, we're going to gain some of that back with the turbo kit and the turbo itself. This turbo is, I want to say, about 45 pounds, pretty far forward on the nose of the truck, so it's definitely going to add some front percentage. I'm hoping that we dropped at least 200, I think in the 200 to 250 pound range. I just noticed this. I think we dropped at least like in the 200 to 250 pound range right off the front of this truck. That's what I'm thinking. Hoping, kind of the same difference. But today we're going to find that out. We're going to put the truck on the scales and see exactly what it is. First, I've got to do a few things, which include showing you some of the progress from yesterday, which is I got the MAC valve mounted and wired up, minus the output wire from the ECU. I've got the wires ran in the cab. I've got one of them hooked to the power, and I need to hook the other one to an output where the Holley will pulse the ground for it. And I've got it as close to the wastegate and the turbo as I can, so these lines are super short. The shorter these lines, the better. It's a much quicker response. If you go over here to the RX-7, you can see I've got mine dang near 2 feet from everything. Well, about 2.5 feet from the wastegate. And I do eventually want to move that a whole lot closer. Got the wiring all cleaned up. You almost can't see it in the shade. I've got most of the fuel lines made. I just have to make the one return from the regulator all the way back to the cell. And I gotta clean these wires up too. I'm just gonna put the braided loom over it. But yeah, we got a bunch of stuff knocked out on it yesterday. A ton of the wiring, which includes stuff inside for the switch panel. Got all these ran. Got the wires for the trans brake ran, so all I have to do once the new shifter gets here
is run the wire to that, and then we have trans brake. So we've got, here's the ignition, fuel pump, fan. This one's dead right now. It might in the future be line lock, possibly, but right now it's nothing. And then this is the dome light up on the roll bar. And then while I was in there doing that, Pop's wired up the relays to one from each battery for the fuel pump, so it has a redundant one and it's getting a crap load of voltage. So you can see I need to get everything cleared off the bed and dig the scales out, and then we can finally figure out how much this thing weighs. Let me show you some of the numbers from before. All right, so here's our weights. This is with the iron-headed big block and no ballast. We'll call it 3750, and it was 57% on the nose, which for a truck, I don't think that's too bad. That was with the tailgate full of concrete, or half full of concrete and no cage, like I've got marked here. And then with the ballast in the back, 3911, we'll call it 3900, and 54% on the nose, which again, I don't think is too bad for a truck. And by ballast, I mean these iron big block peanut port heads that are bolted down. Honestly, instead of getting the big weight plates, this stuff works great, and they take up a lot less room, and they're a lot more dense and a lot heavier. These are, I mean, you can see the math there, about 160 pounds. And we got them as far back as we can get them. And between those and the tailgate, we've got, I think it was about 260 pounds, because the tailgate was about 100 pounds. And then those weights were also with the one battery up front. We now have two batteries back here. So those are probably another 70 pounds, 70 to 80 pounds, give or take. So that's 35 we took off the nose and added back here, plus another probably 35 or so. So I'm hoping that this thing's got pretty darn good bias back here. There was a lot of people just that were obsessed with the concrete in the tailgate. And even with just that, it was still 57% on the nose. They were like, you're going to have too much weight. It's going to slow the truck down. It's 100 pounds. 100 pounds is about a tenth, if I remember right. So it's like, it was really mind-boggling to me that there were so many people just hung up on us putting the weight in the tailgate, and they just couldn't figure it out. And by the way, the tailgate still opened and closed just fine. It doesn't anymore because whoever, and I'm not going to name names, but whoever put the wing on riveted it to the body intentionally, so now the tailgate doesn't open at all. Which, I mean, that's fine. We don't really need it to. Oh, also, those weights are before we put the bed cover on. And you can see that this bed cover is just, I think it's a 16th inch piece of aluminum diamond plate that we cut into 3 sections and then went to the hardware store and got this long piano hinge and just riveted it down. And then these are some hood pins from eBay or Amazon, wherever. And then just welded this angle iron up here so that it has something to sit on. And it works great, looks great, totally changed the look of the truck. So now we can dig out the scales that are right there and put them under the truck, see what it's going to weigh. Put your guesses here now. I'm going to say that I'm thinking without a driver, 35s, high 35s. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's find out. Alright, so since the thermostat housing's leaking and I don't feel like pulling it off to reseal it right now, we're just going to fill this bucket with water and whatever else is in there. We're going to use that as the weight of the water for the radiator, cooling system, on all that. And I'm going to dig the skills out now. If I ever buy another set of scales, which I don't think I'll need to, I'm definitely getting wireless. So you can see the scale's at 0 right now. I'm going to lower the front down. It'll be skewed a little bit because we got the back jacked up right now, but I'm going to drop it down. Alright, I think we're good to drop it down. You guys are going to find out how much it weighs before I do. All right. Wow. It's heavier on the back right now. That's crazy. I don't even care about the 36. Are you guys looking at these percentages? 25.5, 25.1, 24.1, 25.2. Holy moly. All right, so I just set the bucket of water up on the very front, so 36.23, but it's still heavier on the back. All right, let me sit in it. See what that takes it to. About 38.50. I should be upset, but I'm so fascinated right now. So the weight itself, we knew that we... It almost makes me want to take the time to do like an itemized list of everything to see where that weight came from. Like, I mean, I know obviously at the track, we're not going to need to be... This thing's almost perfectly 50-50 too. It's like 49.7% on the rear. So 50.3%, which is crazy. And this is without fuel too. So this thing will be perfectly 50-50 with gas in it, or E85. We're gonna run it on E85. So basically after everything we did, we shaved about 60 pounds, but we should be able to mile an hour a lot more, and we should be able to leave a lot better. And like I said, at the track, we can take a bunch of the weight out. We can probably take both of those heads out, honestly. And that would drop it to about 37 even race weight at the track. Because at the track, you can get away with a whole lot worse weight bias. I was worried that it would still be really front heavy. So now we've got pretty much all the weight we're going to put on the front of this thing. It's dang near settled. I can still get a lot there. We can get better springs for it that'll have a lot more stored energy and drop the front a little bit more, get a little bit more travel out of it. We can get 2 more inches of travel just by lowering the front and getting springs with better stored energy. So yeah, this truck with driver race weight and 50-50 is about 900 pounds heavier than the RX-7 with driver race weight at 50-50. Man, I'm so excited to see what this truck's gonna do. It's gonna be so sick. It's really amusing that it's only a 60-pound difference after we added the turbo kit and the ballast and everything. And there is still a lot of things we could do to make it lighter. Like, it still has a steel hood, it still has glass. If we were trying to go full-on race car with it, we could put Lexan in it. We could tube the front, cut off a bit there. It still has the heavy steering. We could go rack and pinion on it. So yeah, how to make your aluminum LS weigh the same as an iron big block. That's so funny. So here's the new weight. Once we get fuel in it, it'll be pretty close to 39 even, and it'll probably be a little bit heavier on the rear. So let's say it was a 200-pound difference between the two motors, right? Let's say that. And then we added 50, 45, 50 with the turbo, 50 with oil. So we added 50 pounds there, so that's a 150 pound difference. And then we added another battery, so that's another 35 pounds. So now we're down to 115 pound difference. The big block had shorty headers with like 2 foot of pipe, and we did a full turbo kit with fender exit. That's probably, the big block headers were, I'm gonna say about 10 to 15 pounds. We'll say 15 pounds. So that's 30 pounds. We'll say 25 pounds for the entire big block header kit, or for the big block headers. And then the turbo kit, minus the turbo plus wastegate for the LS here, is probably 50 pounds. I think that's pretty fair. Because I know just the dump pipe on it, it might be closer to like 60 pounds. Let's say 60 pounds. So then that 115 pound difference becomes, so yeah, that becomes a 55 pound difference. Yeah, and that's about what the difference was between them too, wasn't it? Oh, plus another thing that I forgot about was we weighed it last time before the cage. So yeah, that would add about 100 pounds. So if it was a 300 pound difference and then the 100 pounds for the cage, that actually, yeah, that all checks out. Huh. Race cars are weird, man. I still think the truck's gonna be a lot faster. It should be able to mile an hour a ton more. I mean, we all think that big block's been hurt for a while. The mile an hour that it was doing was, when you math that out on some of the racing calculators, came out to like 300 horsepower, something like that. Even if this thing only makes 500 horsepower, which it, let's be real, it should make a lot more than that. But even if it only makes 500 horsepower, this thing should be like a second and a half quicker than it's ever been. So I'm excited. We're getting really close. I just have a few little things left to do, and then we can put a bass tune in it, fire it up. I'm excited to hear this thing for the first time, do some testing with it, and then take it to the track. I'm excited. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, clicking that bell. If you need anything from Snake Eater Performance, use code SNIDERTRON for 10% off your order, even if the things are already on sale, like the Bosch injectors are, I think, 30% off. You can do the 10% off on top of that and get 40% off. I know, Brad has lost his mind with that. If you need injectors, now's the time to take advantage of that deal. 40% off, that's crazy. If you need anything from Circle D, use code SNIDER3000 for 10% off. If you want any merch, first link in the description below. If you just want to help out the channel, just like the video. Hopefully you guys have a good day. See you next time.